Hello, my friend. I'm glad you're here again, giving yourself this moment of stillness, this rare pause in a world that never seems to slow down. Before we begin, take a slow breath in, hold it gently, and exhale. Let your thoughts soften, let your shoulders loosen. Let yourself arrive fully in this quiet space. Today's question is one that sits deep in the heart, often unnoticed, but shaping the direction of our lives. Why do we hold on to roles we've outgrown, even when they keep us from becoming who we truly are now? Roles are strange things. We don't choose all of them, yet we carry them. We grow into some, and we inherit others. We perform them because they once protected us, defined us, validated us, or simply helped us survive. But life keeps moving, and sometimes we keep wearing old versions of ourselves long after they've stopped fitting. Let's walk gently into this together. 1. Because roles give us identity, even when that identity is outdated. Life teaches us to introduce ourselves with titles. I am a mother. I am a student. I am a leader. I am the strong one. I am the calm one. I am the funny one. I am the responsible one. These roles become the lens through which we see ourselves. And when a role becomes familiar, it becomes safe, even if it's no longer honest. Imagine a man who has always been the strong one in his family. He carries everyone's problems. He never shows weakness. He holds every burden quietly. But inside, he's tired. He's lonely. He wishes he could break down, even just once. He has outgrown the role. Yet he keeps performing it because he fears who he might be without it. Roles often feel like anchors, but sometimes they're chains. 2. Because outgrowing a role means confronting change, and change feels like loss. When you evolve, you don't just gain something new, you lose something old. You lose the familiarity of who you were. You lose the approval of people who like that version of you. You lose the certainty of your own identity. People cling to roles not because they're comfortable, but because shedding them feels like stepping into emptiness. Let me tell you a story. A woman worked as a nurse for 20 years. She was known for her compassion, her strength, her ability to stay calm in crisis. But inside, she felt drained. She longed to pursue art, painting, creating, slowing down. Yet every time she picked up a brush, guilt followed. She told herself, I am a nurse. I help people. This is who I am. But the truth was simpler. That was who she had been, not who she was now. Leaving the role felt like betraying her former self, and betraying the expectations of others. So she stayed. For years, living inside a version of herself she had long outgrown. Outgrowing a role means letting part of yourself die, so another part can be born. And we humans struggle with any kind of death, even symbolic ones. 3. Because some roles are tied to love, and we fear losing that love. People say, be yourself. But the truth is, many relationships love only the role you play, not the person you are becoming. A child grows up being the easy one. A sibling becomes the problem solver. A partner becomes the one who never complains. A friend becomes the caretaker. When someone begins to change, to have needs, boundaries, opinions, those around them may resist, not because they don't care, but because the change threatens the dynamic that made them feel safe. A man once told me he stayed the funny one in his group of friends long after his humor dried up. He said, "I stopped being myself because I was afraid they only liked the version of me that made them laugh." He wasn't wrong. When he stopped performing that role, some friends drifted away, but the right ones stayed. Not for the role, for him. We hold on to outdated roles because we're afraid of losing love. But real love survives evolution. False love survives only the performance. 4. Because the world rewards consistency, even if the consistency is killing us. Society praises predictability. It loves labeling people, categorizing them, keeping them in familiar lanes. She's the ambitious type. He's the calm one. They're not the kind of person who would. Once the world decides who you are, it resists any updates. So when you start to change, when you want to explore new paths, new identities, new truths, you face resistance, not just from others, from yourself. Because even if the old role is painful, it feels easier than redefining everything. A man once shared that he had always been the career-focused one. For decades, he poured everything into his job. But in his 40s, something shifted. He wanted rest, connection, meaning. But when he slowed down, people said, "That's not like you. You're losing your edge. What happened to the old you?" The pressure to stay the same can be stronger than the desire to grow. We stay inside old roles because change demands courage, and society rarely supports that courage. 5. Because our roles protected us once, and we confuse usefulness with permanence. Every role we've played had a purpose at one point. The strong one was born because you couldn't afford to fall apart. The quiet one emerged because speaking up once cost you something. The helper learned to earn love by being useful. The achiever learned that worth came from performance. The independent one learned that relying on others meant disappointment. These roles formed as shields. They kept us safe. They helped us survive. But shields become prisons if we never put them down. Let me give you an example. A girl grows up in a household where conflict is constant. To survive, she becomes invisible, quiet, small, agreeable. As an adult, that role stays with her. She avoids confrontation. She apologizes too much. She lets others decide for her. She has outgrown the role, but the role has not outgrown her. When she finally begins speaking up, she shakes. Her voice trembles. Her body reacts as though she's breaking a rule that once protected her life. Because in a way, she is. Old roles are tied to old fears. We keep them because our past mistakes them for safety. 6. Because stepping into who we are now requires grieving who we used to be. This may be the hardest truth of all. To grow, you must let something go. To evolve, you must shed a layer. To move forward, you must say goodbye to a version of yourself that once felt like home. We don't talk enough about how painful that is. People imagine growth feels like fire, bright, exciting, powerful. They forget growth also feels like mourning. When you stop being the caretaker, you grieve the identity that once made you feel needed. When you stop being the achiever, you grieve the validation that once kept you going. When you stop being the peacemaker, you grieve the illusion of harmony you once protected. When you step into your true self, you grieve the mask that once kept you safe. It's not easy to outgrow a role. It means acknowledging that who you were is no longer who you are. But grief is not the enemy of growth. It is the doorway. 7. Because we don't recognize our new self until we stop clinging to our old one. This is the paradox. You cannot meet the person you are becoming. if you are still busy protecting the person you used to be. We cling to old roles because we cannot yet imagine who we might become without them. But here's the truth, my friend. You are not limited to the roles you inherited. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to grow beyond every version of yourself that once made sense, but no longer fits. A final story. A man in his late 50s once told me about the moment he realized he had outgrown his entire life. He had always been the provider, worked long hours, sacrificed hobbies, friendships, joy, all to fulfill that role. He wore it with pride. It defined him. But years later, after his children had grown, after his marriage had lost its warmth, after the job no longer filled him, he felt empty, not because he failed his role, but because he had become only the role. He said, "By the time I realized I had outgrown being the provider, I had already forgotten how to be anything else." Then he paused and added softly, "I'm finally learning how to be me, not the role. Me." It took him decades, but he began again. It's never too late to return to yourself. And now, my friend, you ask yourself gently, without judgment, which roles am I still performing out of habit, not truth? Who expects me to stay the same, and at what cost? What version of myself have I outgrown? What new version of myself is quietly asking to emerge? What am I afraid of losing if I stop playing the old role? And the most important question, who could I become if I stopped living someone else's script and finally stepped into my own? You do not have to stay inside the role that once made sense. You do not have to be who you were yesterday. You do not owe consistency to a past self who didn't know what you know now. You owe authenticity to the person you are becoming. Let the old roles go. They served you once. Now let them rest. Step into yourself, the version of you that's waiting patiently beneath all the layers, quietly hoping you will finally listen. Thank you for being here, for giving yourself this moment to reflect. Stay gentle, stay curious, and stay kind. And if this question spoke to you, continue your journey with us on Yarven's Questions. More stories, more reflections, and more quiet truths are waiting for you. Take care, my friend. Until next time.